What's up, everybody? Back for another edition of Prison Talk Live. And just wanted to share with you guys some of the insight on what we got going on today. Hope you guys had a great weekend. And basically, the weather out here is a little bit of rain jumping off, but no big thing for Southern California. And we were hoping to have a little bit more sunny weather, but it didn't turn out that way. Anyways, we're going to do the format a little bit different today. And we want to talk about, the topic is immigration. So I did a prison talk on immigration, and a lot of people had some comments about it. They were curious about what my insight was on it, and the whole thing about detaining people who have been entered the country illegally. And, I want to expound on that a little bit, because usually we go into a bunch of different topics. We don't really get to focus on anything in particular. So if you guys have any questions, let's tailor them towards immigration. And then at the end of the show, we'll get a census on what you guys want to talk about next week. If you haven't checked out our YouTube, check it out. Fresh Out Life After the Penitentiary. Tell your people to basically subscribe, and tell your friends about our Fresh Out on Instagram, FreshOutSeries, also on Twitter, FreshOutSeries. Shout out to Stockton. Shout out to everybody that's been tuning in from the beginning. We appreciate your support. And check out our SoundCloud. We got a Fresh Out series on SoundCloud. And also Chef V is doing his thing on Patreon, patreon.com. He's got the spreads jumping off. And, it's a good thing. Keep supporting us. We guys appreciate it. Try to keep you guys in the loop on some real talk and informed on what's going on. Anyway, somebody said, what up from Australia? Somebody said, yeah, they have a whole lot of checkpoints here for that, for as far as the immigration is concerned. And the thing is about immigration is that, I mentioned private prisons. Shout out to Jamaica. Shout out to Be More. But, I mentioned, private prisons. And a lot of these private prisons, they're not necessarily the ones who are advocating criminalizing the whole thing about coming into the country, but they are making money as far as locking these guys up. When somebody said, when illegals get locked up, do they go to the state or to the federal? It's federal, because it's interstate. You're crossing international lines, whether you're coming from El Salvador, Nicaragua, Mexico, Jamaica, Haiti. It all ties in. And basically under the Obama administration, they had planned to shut down a lot of the private facilities. So these private prisons, by contributing to the Trump campaign, it benefited them to keep these, for him to get into office so he can change his policy. And sure enough, as soon as he came into office, the policy in regards to the BOP, when they were going to actually get rid of the private prisons, got overturned. So these private prisons, their stock was at about $19. Now it's back up to $42. And people say, well, they're not going to lock them up. No, they're not going to lock them up and keep them there. But what they will do is have temporary holding for these people. It used to be catch and release. And the catch and release situation was, when they caught them, you'd be released and you'd have to report back to court. But now with the new policy, these people who are over here illegally, or who don't have proper paperwork, they will be deported, but they'll also be held for a certain amount of time in these holding facilities, which fills up bed space. This allows these private prisons to monetize these places that are getting subsidized by federal funding, and also it helps their shares, because if they don't have these beds filled, they don't make money. They make money per individual in that bed space. That's their census count. And that's how they benefit. So if these federal prisons were emptied out, they couldn't make no money. They have to shut down. So it's all commerce. What up from Italy? Um, yeah, but yeah, shout out. I've never been to Mississippi. Shout out to Mississippi. But yeah, so people out there who are just thinking, hey man, you know, this is no big thing. I'm over here. I've been over here. I've been chilling. Well, when they start really cracking down, because now that they legalize marijuana, see, that's a lot of people that aren't going to be getting locked up anymore. So they have to turn their attention in another direction so they can still make money. And basically, it's a money game, with these people, man. Private prisons, immigration, it's all about profits and trying to capitalize on basically human stock. Shout out to Japan. Yeah, it's part of a big, like somebody said, part of a big economy of revolving doors. In the feds, man, the average person does 10 years. And if you go to any other country, as far as especially a lot of the Danish countries, they're only doing maybe 16 years for murder. So they're actually rehabilitating. There is no rehabilitation here. This is a penal system, which means you're being locked up to be punished. And even though you came in over here illegally through immigration, and you're working hard, they're like I said, they're criminalizing the whole process, and they're gonna profit from it, and like somebody else said right here, Soldier Boy, the slave plantations, man, these prison in general, I know for committing certain crimes people need to be punished, but a lot of these crimes are victimless, and when you look at the whole system and what it's based off of, it's based off a bunch of petty laws, and the people running these prisons, they're basically for profit. I spoke on it before, and I don't know if a lot of you guys are familiar with Unicor, which is basically private contracting that takes place in these prisons, and they make everything from jeans to missile detection systems for the military, parts for Hummers. They do accounting. They do everything. You can look it up. I'm not speaking out the side of my mouth, But they make everything, man. So by having these people in there, it allows them to capitalize on basically labor. And as far as the immigration places, they're not going to have as far as a Unicor jumping off to that extent, because of just the fact that these people are just coming in, and maybe they might be in there for 30, 60, 90 days or 180 days, depending on how long it takes for their court process to go through. But in the mainstream prisons, Unicor is big business, man. Guys doing 20 years, they get them in those factories, man. And, that's how it goes down. But, immigration is a subject that, a lot of people hear in the news, but they're not really familiar with it. So I just want to speak on that and, hopefully get some input from you guys on what you think about immigration, and get some feedback from you guys, because you guys are the voice, you got to speak up, and, you can't be naive. Half the people in this country don't even know who the vice president is. They don't know who won the Civil War. I mean, it's a pretty dumbed down society. What's up from Roseville, But do you think it's really illegal immigrants bringing in the drugs, or U.S. citizens? Illegal immigrants bringing in the drugs. Now, this is the thing. U.S. consumes more drugs than anybody else. And you cannot make any big moves like El Chapo or any of these guys, Pablo Escobar, unless you're tied in with the government. That's just it's a known fact. I mean, how can you bring over truckloads of drugs? Yeah, you might have I know some guys who were doing it on a private level that I was locked up with. But when you start talking about like really operating with immunity in like, places like Mexico, you're tied in with the drugs. You're tied in with your cartel, you're tied in with the government. And what usually happens is a lot of these cartels, once there's a new administration, and then they basically, just throw in a couple of people to get, their collateral damage. They get their cartels get washed up with the government, and they get locked up. And then that's how it works. But this, the drug use in this country and the drugs being brought in, it creates commerce, man. Yeah, they're stopping some drugs, but at the same time, you know how many, if they legalize cocaine or per se, or they say they really just wanted to get rid of heroin, you know how many people would be out of work? You know how many task force and different joint police units would be null and void? You know, they would cease to exist. So the drugs in general make this country a lot of money, man. Just like alcohol did back in the days for prohibition in the 30s and 20s, you know, it's big business. Shout out to Ireland. And somebody else mentioned that, you know, this country was founded on immigrants, you know, and the thing is, who's working the agriculture fields? Who's doing a lot of you know, working in a lot of these households, cleaning and doing a lot of stuff, and just, you know, body shops, miscellaneous jobs. You got guys that are construction. You know, you'll have some guy who's you know, basically the head of the construction, but then he's got a bunch of you know, either people from Mexico or El Salvador or somewhere else working for him. So of course he's not doing the manual labor, but he's the overseer and he's paying them under the table and he's making big profits. So, you know, immigration is big, man. You go right now to Salinas, you go to Modesto, Stockton, Fresno. There's not a white or black person working out there picking any vegetables or fruit. It's all immigrants. So, you know, you say, oh, well, who's going to work out there? I don't think any white people are going to go out there and pick strawberries or avocados or lettuce or whatever the case may be, or any black people. I don't see them lining up to do those jobs. So, you know, it's a lot of bullshit, man. The wineries would cease to exist without immigrants. So, you know, it's you know, you go out there and it's a Spanish community who is basically the backbone of the agriculture of this country, you know. And it's just like back in the day, man. They got to have somebody working out. They had the blacks working out there picking the cotton. The same shit, you know. And then when they freed them, they basically, if you were loitering or considered, you know, just hanging out, you got locked up and you went right back to work on the plantations. So, you know, it's a lot of you know, it's a lot of shit, man. People don't want to talk about when it comes to economics, but they're hooting and hollering about shit they're not familiar with, you know. Shout out to Spain. You know, I wish I could go out there and do some public speaking, hopefully in the near future. Somebody said, you know, in regards to immigration, I'll kind of spin off just a tiny bit. But somebody said, did I already know anybody working with the cartels? And, you know, as far as immigration, you know, well, there's money being made all the way around the board, not just drugs, but bringing people into the country. And it could be not only Spanish community, whether it be Nicaragua, El Salvador, and or Mexico, that you have the you know, the coyotes bringing them in. It could be China. There's a lot of people coming over here from China illegally. You know, they don't talk about that. There's a big Asian community that is over here illegally. So, you know, it's a lot of, it's not just limited to Spanish. You know, you got people over here from, you know, Europe over here who don't have paperwork. You got people over here from Canada. You got people over here from all over. You know, but you know, the news is primarily talking about targeting a certain group of people because it's easy target. They don't know the laws, and it's easy for them to say, well, to stack them up. I was in the Fed, so I've been in some of these facilities that were in these cities, and they were empty. We were only there. They only put us there so they can justify funding, and basically it would be maybe 100 people in this whole facility, all in one unit, and the rest of the prison is empty. So it's, you know, it's a lot of bullshit, man. Hey, somebody right here mentioned something pretty good. Somebody said, remember the Irish built a lot of your buildings and roads. A member of our government made a speech lately to Trump reminding him that America was built in part by immigration from everywhere. That's very true. This country, all these rich ass, old blue blood politicians and businessmen that sit around who live off of trust, they wouldn't have none of that shit if it wasn't for the immigrants, whether it be the Irish, the black. They weren't really immigrants. Black was slaved, you know, the Italians, the French, people who came from France, from Germany, prior to, somebody said, China, Czech Republic, Russian, Polish, people from everywhere built this country. And, people don't realize that before you had racism, there was no such thing as a white race. Basically, if you weren't rich, you were just either poor or rich or aristocratic. So what happened was, a lot of you guys probably don't read up on too much history, but what happened, the rich got together and they convinced the Irish, the Italians, the Polish, everybody else that they're part of the white community. And what they did was separate them from the poor blacks. Because, blacks, Irish, Polish, Italians, Germans, they actually had a rebellion against the rich people who were making them work for pennies on the dollar. They were all slaved out, economically. And when they created the white race, there was no white race previously to, if you go back to the 1820s, 30s, when they created that, it created separation and it created social economics, which separated, us by color. And it's a bunch of bullshit. It's the same thing they're doing with the society right now with the immigrants by putting a face on them. Oh, I forgot about the Indians, the Native Americans who were put on plantations. And basically, if you left, it was a felony. They took everything from there. So, it's a lot of brainwashing. And somebody mentioned the white ideology. And one of the biggest things that they use to basically get the immigrants to be submissive was religion. And in the South, it was illegal for a black person or certain poor people to even go to school. You couldn't even go to school. You couldn't get an education. You had to learn to read through your slave owner's wife, hopefully, if she taught you, or somebody else who was educated, and sneak books in. But they would actually punish you. Get whipped for reading. So the immigrants, they didn't have, and the slaves, they didn't have a fair advantage when it came to education. And so, the same thing with the Native Americans. They didn't have equal playing fields. And education is what has continued to separate us as far as economically between the rich and poor. And they continue to do that because they need to be able to control the masses, man. They need you guys to stay in the dark. Italian was a major because he was part of Wall Street, somebody said. Somebody said, Big Herc, you heard of Pine Ridge, SD, South Dakota, 96% poverty on the reservation is fucked families living in Tahoes. I think I meant to say something else, but yeah, man, there's a lot of poverty in this country that's overlooked. And then we're always talking about, funding overseas, stopping basically starvation in other countries. There's people right here that are basically starving that need our help, and it ties back to, like I said, it goes right back to economics. It goes right back to education and, just where you are in society. We don't really talk about it, about racism. Everybody wants to oh man, we don't want to say anything about that. Everybody's all scared of it, but it's a fact, man. And yeah, if you are a certain skin tone in this country, you are basically open for more opportunities than the next person. It's not to say that if you're of darker complexion, you can't get a decent job, but the jobs aren't coming as fast as if you're light skinned or if you're white. So it's a lot of economics that plays into the whole race thing, the whole immigration thing, and it's a lot of superiority complex going on as far as just with these people who aren't coming right out and saying it, but they actually think they're better than a certain group of people. And that's what's up. So the immigration thing, I want to really touch on that. I touched on it for a minute, so I'm going ahead and I'm gonna open up questions now for some other stuff. And do your homework, man. Look up Core Civics, the private corporation. It used to be Corrections Corporation of America. Look up Wackenhut. Look up these places. You know, a lot of state prisons are privately prisons. You know, they're making money, man. Get your, you know, don't put money in these people's pockets, man. Don't fucking educate your kids so they don't get trapped in this fucked up system, man. You know, it ain't cool. Somebody said, Big Herc, the skinheads treat me. What's I did this? How did skinheads treat me in prison? I didn't have any issues with skinheads. You know, I grew up in the hood, and I grew up in Huntington Beach, and I actually knew a lot of people, so I was able to cross over a lot of lines that a lot of blacks couldn't do. And I talked to a lot of different people. You know, I talked to I knew some Serranos up in there. You know, we couldn't kick it, but I chopped it up with them. They respected me. I respected them because the conversation levels. I kicked it with, I know some Northaniels, you know. I knew a couple dudes that are skinheads. And a lot of times, it was people from my own race that would get mad at me because, you know, I actually was pretty diverse like this. And I grew up on a military base for quite a few years. So I had friends that were Filipino, that were Asian, that were, you know, Dominican, white, everything, you know what I'm saying? So I didn't really see race. The most racism I've seen in my life was in prison. It's a bunch of ignorant motherfuckers up in there, and that's the worst I've seen as far as racism is concerned. But yeah, man, it's you know, it's just a fucked up situation. Prison in general, and you know, like I said last week, the word for the day is fuck prison. Educate yourself. Stay up out of there, man. Don't put yourself in no fucking don't put yourself in a position to be, you know, a slave to these people, man, and taken away from your family. Somebody said, "What's up with the Pisces?" I knew a couple of Pisces. You know, they didn't speak English, but I had a homeboy that spoke Spanish, so we used to do legal work for them also. I also had a Colombian partner. He was cool. You know what I'm saying? Used to chop it up with him when I was at Sheridan. You know, I fuck with a lot of people, man, because I was able to, you know, basically network outside my race, you know, and I articulated myself and I educated myself. So that was my hustle. How does the point system work in prison? Well, for the feds, if you have a criminal history, everything's based on your criminal history, and then they have a chart and they categorize you at different levels, and based on your criminal history level is how they determine how much time you're going to get sentenced to. So if you have any previous felonies or other things that you have on your record, you want to get those expunged, you know, go to hire you a lawyer or go to the law library, read up on some of your priors, and you get that shit off the record, man. You ain't got to sit there and carry that. Get it off your record, get it expunged, and you know you can get you a job in real estate or other things. You know, there's a lot of opportunities for you. Even if you are ex-felon, you ain't gotta. You know, you don't have to limit yourself. Shout out to Germany. Somebody said, Big Herc, if you ever were to go back, would you be on the green light for making videos and telling the ins and outs? Nah, because I'm just educating people. And I'm never going back to prison. I'm not gonna put myself in a fucked up position like that. Somebody said, did your co-defendant who snitched on you eventually get his wig split in prison? No, the co-defendant that told when we first got arrested, Charlie Satterman, he actually went crazy. This guy, he told, but then he was embarrassed to tell us, so he told me when we actually met up again that he didn't tell. So we were kicking it, but then when I got my discovery, I found out that it was 100 pages, and he basically laid down the whole case. And so I had no choice but to plead guilty, even though it was a high-speed chase, you know what I mean, and we had masks on. They couldn't identify us, so we switched cars. I pled out. And he would have only gotten 7 years, but because he felt so guilty for telling, he actually took his plea back and went to trial and tried to say he made it all up. And he got his wig split. He got 14 years. Actually, I think 17 years. He did 14. And he went mentally crazy. He went crazy in prison, did most of his time at a mental institution. He got out, was living on Skid Row. And basically, he got shot by the LAPD. You know, he got in a confrontation with LAPD, and he got shot about a year or so ago. So he's dead. You know what I mean? He wasn't able to get his life back together when he got out of prison. Sad situation. If you guys got any questions directly you want me to do a prison talk on, email us at FreshOutSeries@gmail.com. You know, somebody said, how many fights I get in prison? I didn't get into a bunch of fights because I didn't carry myself like that. You know, I was on some other shit. You know, I was primarily, I had to check a few cats, but I wasn't in there. I'm not going to try to fire it up and act like I was riding and doing shit on the yard and all this. I wasn't doing that. I was on some different time, and I was preparing myself to actually, get out. I wasn't looking at institutionalizing myself, you know. Um, yeah, somebody said the LAPD shooting is a big story. Yeah, it was a big story. It was in the papers, you know. And yeah, I think his family actually tried to sue, but you know, they don't. I don't know if they got anything. How do I feel about children getting a life sentence? I think it's fucked up. You know, I think a child who's not mentally developed all the way and who has potential not to necessarily be a career criminal should have an opportunity to do something positive. You know, they should have an opportunity for rehabilitation, but they shouldn't have the book thrown at them. You know, a lot of these kids, man, they make mistakes, man. And shit happens, but like I said, in this country, they're unforgiving in certain circumstances. People get, you know, they give them crazy time. And, you know, I just want to say, I usually don't say too much about the trolls, but Beanie Boys, nigga, you suck a dick. You know what I'm saying? You keep jumping on here with some dumbass shit, nigga. Go do something else with your time, man. Nobody asked you to come on here and, you know, communicate with anybody, nigga. Go do something else. You ain't got to sit here and be, you know, wasting time at the computer, you troll motherfucker. Tampon boy, like Callie Muscle says. You know what I'm saying? You would never say that to my face, nigga. The email is FreshOutSeries@gmail.com. So, yeah, I'm not even going to make any more addresses to that. Apologize for you guys tuning in. But, you know, these trolls, man, sometimes I got to set them in a place because, you know, they're internet warriors, man. You know, straight cowards and they ain't got nothing else to do. And when I'm trying to share something positive with you people, it kind of like, it's disrupting to see people just saying stupid shit, man. You know what I'm saying? I'm just sharing information. I'm not talking shit. I'm not saying I'm the hardest nigga out here. I'm not saying I'm the toughest. All I said is, all I'm sharing with you is experiences what I went through and trying to basically open up you guys' minds so that you don't make the same mistakes I did. You know? Can you get sent out to the East Coast if you were convicted on the West Coast? Yeah. I've seen them transfer people who are high-powered. I've seen them like they were a mob guy who was on the East Coast. A couple of dudes I ran across that were at Terre Haute, and because they had so much pull in the institution, they shot them out to the West Coast to get them away from where they could possibly corrupt guards and other people in the institution. Because some of these dudes, man, they were having stakes up in there. They were they were doing it big up in there because they had a lot of pull and they were able to make shit happen in their home state or near their home state. So they shot them out to the West Coast. And they do that a lot in the feds because the feds is nationwide. It's not like the state. You catch a state case, you're in the state. But feds, you know, you might have caught your case in California and they send you out to, New Jersey or Oklahoma or, Colorado. So, you know, they send you all over, man. Do the Amish people go to prison? I haven't run across any Amish. And I'm in LA, Benny Boy. If you want to holler at me, I'm in LA. I'm all around, bro. So, you know, holler at me if you want to try to see something, man. You bitch ass. But anyway, yeah, you know, it's interesting, man, when you know, haven't been through this system and you see and hear things. And a lot of times that, you know, things are candy coated and, you know, it's a lot of bullshit that they propagate on the news. So people don't really have the true understanding from, what socially people go through. Somebody says, it's hi, Herc from Lloyd from UK. How does being on the internet after committing a crime affect your social life? Finding love. I'm married, so I actually met my wife online. So, it's, I initially, I don't really come out and say, hey, I've been to prison. But at the same time, through conversation, it eventually comes out. And the way I carry myself, I don't really have any issues, man. You know, I mean, people, they realize that, hey, you know, I'm not your typical guy who's been in prison, and the way I handle myself is not like I've been institutionalized. Somebody says, do I believe in white privilege? I've seen people benefit from white privilege. I've been to a school where there's only 5 or 6 blacks, and I've been to a school where there's a diverse population, and I've seen a difference, and I know the opportunity that are presented. And, for the most part, if you educate yourself, you can equalize the playing field. That's the biggest thing, is educating yourself. And a lot of people don't want to take the time to read. They don't want to take the effort to educate themselves. So as far as me talking about white privilege, yeah, I mean, I ain't gonna lie, in the hood, you see police, you get nervous. Even if you ain't did anything, because it's just, they ain't got nothing else to do. And they have codes that they actually use among the police officers when they see certain blacks in Sacramento. It's a fact. You know what I mean? They have certain things. I've seen a person, I had a homeboy chilling one time with his white girlfriend, and he was just sitting outside on the lawn, and, several police cars pulled up and started questioning him. So it was fucked up, man. He didn't even do nothing. And she came out to try to help him, and they told her to go back in the house. So, I mean, what was that, man? A black man sitting on a lawn in a white neighborhood? What is that? Is that black privilege? You're black privilege? You must be doing something? I mean, I don't see, there's not a whole lot of black cops going around the white neighborhoods harassing white people. You know what I mean? It's just not happening, And there's blacks harassing blacks in the black neighborhood just as well, So I'm just saying, this society, this culture, we do a lot of, we don't want to deal with a lot of shit in the face because we're embarrassed. But yeah, man, racism does play a big factor in this country. And you go to places like Arkansas, Mississippi, Missouri, Georgia, there's not a lot of people interacting, as far as, blacks and whites. It's a lot more separate, man. I mean, I've never heard of it in California. We have separate senior proms, one for black, one for white. What kind of shit is that, man? We're supposed to be past that as a country. It's still fucked up. But yeah, somebody else said, let me see here. I'm looking for a decent question. Somebody said, if you have hella dough and go to prison, can you get yourself out? Not necessarily. There's some big drug dealers that did time, and they had some of the best lawyers. The thing is, I've seen a guy who had life in 25. He actually got out. He spent like probably $3 million, and he got out of prison. But there were some loopholes in his case, and his lawyer kept fighting. And a lot of times these lawyers, man, they get their money and they're cool, man. They move on to the next. So you got to really have a strong family base on the street. And this guy had a lot of people visiting him. He had a lot of people that supported him, and he had a lot of connections. But not everybody has those connections to fight for 20 years to get their case overturned. So, 100,000, 200,000, that shit runs out quick, man. I had a homie spent 100 racks and, actually 150 racks, and he still did 14 years. So, it's a fucked up situation. Somebody said, what's my daily driver? I got a 6.8 Cougar, 72 Chevelle, and a 94 NSX. I drive them daily. You know what I'm saying? NSX, I'm working on it right now, but the other cars I drive daily, and I got a Jag. But anyways, we're coming to a half-hour show. I'm actually a little bit over. But I wanted to share that with you guys. Shoot me an email, FreshOutSeries@gmail.com. Hit us up on our Instagram, FreshOutSeries, and our Twitter. And if you guys got some questions, also check out www.FreshOutSeries.com. That's our website. We got apparel on there. We got t-shirts. We got hats. We're trying to do some stuff with, just with apparel. So holler at us, man. And, thanks for everybody for tuning in, man, for supporting the channel. And I apologize for, lashing out at the troll, but sometimes, man, it just gets on my nerves. One of the things, man, that I've tried to learn is to control my temper and to not be the type of person who would just take off. Before prison, man, if a motherfucker said something stupid to me and we were on the streets, or somebody double back and cross me, I'll split their wig. I wouldn't hesitate. You fuck me on working on my car or talking shit about my family, disrespecting me, I'll bust your shit. I wasn't no internet nigga. I was never, I don't like to gossip. That's what bitches do. You know what I mean? I handle my shit. You know what I mean? But now I'm out. I'm on some, I got a family. I got things going on. I ain't got time for that. So sometimes, it gets on my nerves. But anyways, I'm out. Shout out to the trolls. You keep it interesting. And, you guys do your homework, man. If you guys got a topic you want to talk about, hit me up. You know what I mean? We'll tune in. And, yeah, man. Anyways, to the suckers out there who like to talk shit, eat a dick up, man. Y'all niggas are some busters. Go find something else to do with your life. I'm out. And, You guys who keep supporting, man. Tell your fans, your friends, and your family to subscribe to our YouTube channel. All right.